Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fan Appreciation Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm checking out a film from 1987. That movie is Deadly Prey. Now, before I put Deadly Prey on the wish list, I had no idea what the hell kind of movie it was. I had gotten a handful of requests for it, but few people would give me any actual details outside of it's an 80s action film. Most people would go as far as to say it's either interesting or different. Thankfully, nobody would come straight out and tell me if the movie's good or bad, because that always irritates the shit out of me. But the fact that they kept everything kind of sort of vague and broad, I had no earthly clue. And so I put it on the wish list, somebody bought it, they sent it in. It wasn't until this thing showed up that I bothered to finally read up on it. And according to the back here, what the plot is about is it's about a team of mercenaries who kidnap people off of the street and they hunt them for sport. And one day they kidnap this guy, who happens to be a shell-shocked Vietnam vet who, as soon as he gets dumped into their little hunting ground, becomes poor man's fourth-rate Rambo. So, okay, that does sound a little bit interesting. What I'm more fascinated, though, by is the disclaimer they have on the back of the case, which has nothing to do with the movie itself, but more how it got on Blu-ray. Allow me to read this. Deadly Prey is presented using the best available elements provided by Slasher Video, not sourced from an HD master, remastered from PAL Beta SP, and up-converted to Blu-ray and DVD specifications. Now, besides the fact that, at least in the US, Betamax players didn't have SP speed if you were trying to record tapes. They had Beta 1 and Beta 2. Now, besides that, which is sort of doing my head in, what that basically means, guys, is what I'm going to watch is essentially a European Betamax tape that somebody tried to up-convert to 1080p and put onto a Blu-ray. Which means this thing is probably going to look homely as shit. I have no earthly clue, though. I'm kind of curious about that. I'm also curious if the movie's going to be any good. The only way I'm going to get an answer to either of those questions is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Deadly Prey. Well, guys, I am going to give this movie credit. It seriously does not fuck around. Most movies will slowly build up to our hero being hunted by mercenaries. We are only about 15 minutes in or so, 14 minutes, 15 minutes in, and he's already taken out 2 of them. So, at least this movie isn't, sluggish in terms of getting the story going. I just wish that this wasn't so mind-numbingly dull. Because even for an action, wow, he really is wiping out these mercs real fucking quick. That's already his 3rd. Anyway, for everything, guys, that this movie's doing, I just sort of wish that it would do it all a little bit better, because our dialogue, our acting is just not there, and it's just, I fear that this movie's going to be kind of a painful watch, man. So, wait a minute here. So not only do we have our hero, who's literally a 4th-rate Rambo clone, but Colonel Hogan, the head of this mercenary troop, is essentially Colonel fucking Troutman. Jesus, guys, I totally understand that it's easy to rip off the formula for Rambo, but you don't rip it off that blatantly. I mean, it's totally cool if you're going to have like a one-man army who's going to fuck up everything else, but you don't have the son of a bitch who trained him also there. The only difference is that the guy who's playing Hogan is in no way Richard fucking Crenna, and that's kind of tragic, because, well, actually, I kind of wish that anybody here was as good as anybody in any of the Rambo films. God, this movie's boring as fuck. And the more that it rips off of Rambo, just the more it makes me want to just shut this off and go throw in all of my Rambo, Blu-rays. God, this is really gonna suck, man. Alright, I've got kind of a stupid question. exactly how the hell is this band of mercenaries able to hide in the U.S.? I have to ask this, guys, because, you know, they have dozens of tanks and, like, personnel fucking carriers and a bunch of other shit. They are in a very large area. And I don't care if they're in the backwoods of southern fucking California. I don't really think that a bunch of mercenaries would be able to hide this much shit, be able to kill this many random fucking strangers, and, you know, be able to get away with it with literally no possible consequences. Especially when the guy who's running the thing, the one training them, at least according to the movie earlier, is one of the highest decorated officers in the history of special forces. That means that the Army would have an obvious, you know, interest in him. They sure as fuck would not just cut his ass loose and not fucking look in on him. Holy shit, guys, nothing here is making a lick of sense. I probably wouldn't care if there was anything in this movie to fucking care about. But no, this movie's boring as fuck, and it's leaving me wondering how the hell they're able to hide their fucking operation in Southern California and have no fucking suspicions at all. It's actually kind of bugging me a bit. Alright guys, I have another question. Apparently, Danton here was able to walk from the mercenaries' base where he was dropped off all the way back to his home where he was first kidnapped. And because he lives in the suburbs, that means that this massive mercenary military base is within walking distance of the fucking suburbs. That makes me wonder even more, how the fuck is this thing hidden? How the hell are they hiding their actions from any kind of police or governmental anything? Holy shit, that is just fucked up, man. So wait. So this bunch of trained mercenaries just watched as one of their own wandered into a tripwire and died, and so their strategy is to run through the woods without checking for more tripwires. And this batch of brain-dead imbeciles are trained by a decorated Special Forces officer. Jesus fucking Christ! There is no way this bunch of mercenaries are trained by anybody who's decorated in anything. For fuck's sake, this is the stupidest bunch of mercenaries I think I've ever fucking seen. Well, guys, that was Deadly Prey. Thank fuck that's over. Jesus H. Christ. Okay. Fucking hell, where to start? I'm gonna start with writing. I understand every time I do an action film and I bitch about the writing, no matter how many times I attempt to explain this point, people are gonna crawl out of the woodwork and bitch because I'm complaining about writing in an action film. But I'm gonna make this point again, because god damn it, it still matters. I'm not asking for a perfect story here. I'm not. I'm not asking for top-notch writing. But what I am asking for, at the very least, barest fucking minimum, is a story that's interesting. A story that is going to drive the viewer to want to see more. And that is the kind of shit you saw in Rambo and in fucking Commando. In a lot of these action films. They may not have the best writing on the planet, but motherfucker, you are still invested in the story. Because as flimsy as the story may be, you still care. Part of that is because of the acting, but also part of it is because of how the story is written, because of how things flow, because of how shit is laid out. Deadly Prey has none of that. I will cover acting in a minute, but I want to focus on the writing first. So our story is literally just trying to take the first two Rambo films, mash them up, and spit them out in this disgusting waste of time. And really, the only things that they borrow from the first film is the fact that Danton is hiding from his hunters, very similar to Rambo hiding in the fucking mountain, and the fact that he lays out traps. The weird thing about the traps is, in the final act, they actually spend time to show that he's setting up all of these traps. He's setting up all these tripwires and all these fucking grenades and spikes and plastic explosives. I don't know why a civilian would have plastic explosives in their fucking home, but apparently Danton not only had that, he also had, let's see here, throwing knives, AK, rocket launcher, oh boy, machete, big giant fucking machete, and a bundle of TNT that looked like it crawled out of a Looney Tunes cartoon. No, he never actually uses the bundle of fucking TNT. That was, I guess that was just in that one scene as he's fucking arming up at home before he goes out and kills off the rest of the fucking, mercenaries. Spoiler alert. So we don't get to see him blow up something with we don't get to see him blow up somebody with a bundle of TNT that would give fucking Daffy fucking Duck a boner. No, we don't friggin' get that. That unfortunately is never seen again. Speaking of him arming up at home, that's because and I've talked about this plenty, but I just want to make this point once more. This is a band of mercenaries who are training in the U.S. They have a rather sizable military base with tanks and personnel carriers, jeeps, and everything else you could They have fucking choppers, for Christ's sake. They are shooting people from the fucking chopper at one point, and it's within walking distance of the California suburbs. So how the fuck does no one know about this? Especially when Colonel Hogan, it stated earlier, is a highly decorated Special Forces officer. You'd think the military would try to keep tabs on their highly decorated officers even after they've been after they've been decommissioned. You'd think they would try to keep tabs on them. So that means that the U.S. military would at least know that Colonel Hogan's doing fucking something. And if he's got a giant field with tanks and choppers and jeeps and shit, and there's fucking gunfire in the woods next to said field with tanks, choppers, and shit, you'd think maybe he was up to something. You'd think maybe that the military or the cops or the people living within walking distance of this place would be a little bit suspicious, would try to ask some questions, would maybe call the cops. But no, nothing. Nada. Apparently, California is so fucking inept that this massive band of mercenaries... I should mention, guys, that Danton's body count is around 50, 60 by the time this movie's done. There's no way you can train a band of mercenaries that fucking big in the U.S. and not have somebody notice. Because the U.S. takes notice when groups of 20 or less are forming fucking militias. So you'd think a unit this big, with this kind of hardware, with this kind of firepower, would be tracked in some way. But no, apparently we are not supposed to think about that. We're not supposed to think about the traps. I mentioned the traps earlier, the tripwires, the plastic explosives, all that's final act shit. You see all that, that's fine. You see him build that shit. But earlier in the film, he's setting up fucking traps that would take, maybe 45 minutes, an hour maybe to build, and he's doing it in like 30 seconds. So at one point, he's being chased by a bunch of fucking mercenaries. Danton's being chased by a bunch of mercenaries. And he rounds this corner. In the 30 seconds it takes for the mercenaries to come around the corner, he has dug a 3-foot deep hole, was able to make a twig and leaf mesh that he could put on top of it in order to camouflage it, hide inside it, spring up and gun all of them down. 30 seconds. Took 30 seconds for those fuckers to come around the corner. How the hell did Danton do all of that in 30 seconds, yet it takes him a good 2 minutes to set up every single one of these tripwires and these fucking spikes and everything else? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And Danton does that quite often early on. He's setting up all these big traps, like there is, at one point, he camouflages himself in leaves and lays out, he waits for somebody to walk up, and then he stabs them. Do you have any idea how long it would take to properly camouflage yourself in leaves? Like lay down and actually cover yourself in leaves and make it look natural? It wouldn't take the 10 fucking seconds it took for him to walk off camera and for this mercenary to find him, okay? That is the big problem with this writing, guys, is that there's no logic to it. There is no logic to Danton's traps. There's no logic to the mercenaries training in the U.S., knowingly training in the U.S. considering a lot of the other shit which goes on in this fucking movie. That makes zero sense. Just why in the hell the mercenaries are randomly picking up targets instead of actually researching their hunting targets to try to find people who are a challenge, since apparently all the ones before Danton were a big waste of fucking time. You would think that all of this would happen. You would think there'd be some logic there, but there isn't. There is zero logic here. This movie is running on retard logic, and that's not a good thing. I could probably continue talking about the writing and how stupid it is, how pointless it is, how shallow, empty, and dead every single one of our characters are. And I'm not, and no, guys, I'm not using that as a pun because the only person left when the movie's done is fucking Danton. Spoiler alert on that. No, I mean our characters have no fucking personality at all. There is literally no difference between Danton and Colonel Hogan, except one of them is our designated hero who kills people on fucking mass. The other one is our designated villain who sends people out to kidnap fucking targets and will rape a woman when given the soonest possible chance. Yes, that does happen in this movie. Our characters have no fucking personality and no character. Our story is pointless and dead, and there are so many logic holes that the only way you could get any kind of joy out of this movie is if you were to shut your brain totally the fuck off. Now, with that in mind, all of that could probably be given. All the shitbag writing could probably be forgiven if the actors tried just slightly. If the actors put even a shred of fuck in, if they gave even the slightest inkling of a fuck when they were on camera, maybe then there would be something there. But no, they don't. Not a single actor in this movie gives the slightest bit of shit when it comes to everything in this goddamn movie. Nobody here is trying. Every line of dialogue is lifeless. And I am not talking wooden, guys, because that would be a horrendous insult to fucking trees. There are trees out there that are livelier than any member of our fucking cast. Nobody here put in the slightest bit of effort, and goddamn it makes this movie infinitely fucking worse. To make and to put the fucking cherry on top of all of that, at least half the dialogue here was obviously dubbed in afterwards, which means that the actors had a second fucking chance to put some feeling into these goddamn lines, and they couldn't. They couldn't, and they didn't. And that kind of lazy bullshit should not fucking stand. The acting in this movie is a fucking crime. It is that bad. Special effects. Let's touch on special effects. That's probably the one spot in this movie where it kind of sort of shines, because we have everything from squibs, blood packs, and tons of shit blowing up. The problem is that the way that a lot of this stuff is set up, it once more hammers a bunch of logic issues in there. So at one point, Hogan and a bunch of his men are hunting for Danton. Danton has the rocket launcher that was sitting in his fucking closet, and he's pointing it straight ahead. He's pointing this thing directly ahead, which means that Hogan and his men are straight ahead. All right, which means that if Danton fires, it's gonna hit one of Hogan's men. It's going to fucking detonate, and it's gonna splash outwards. It's gonna get most of them. What happens in this movie is he fires, the rocket magically phases through Hogan and every single one of the men who was with him and explodes about 10 feet behind them, so all of them can do their stupid little stunt, fucking jump and flip, and that apparently kills like 3 of them. No, guys, I don't know how the hell a rocket magically phases through fucking targets, but then again, that happens with everything. Okay, every single bit of plastique and every single fucking grenade explodes about 5 feet away from the target, and that apparently is enough to kill them. I totally understand, guys, that we have things like shrapnel and all of that shit, which can totally kill people when one of these fucking things goes off. Problem is that when they die, they don't have any shrapnel fucking damage. Apparently, they are killed by the shockwave of the fucking thing, because even though, guys, we have squibs and we have blood packs, we have all this other fun shit, makeup, they didn't bother to do a whole lot of makeup in terms of blood. So if somebody gets blown up with something, they basically are either lying there with literally no wounds in sight, or in a couple of cases they are basically vaporized by the little hand fucking grenade, and we're left with smoking boots. That happened twice. So even though, guys, everything looks fine, it's just basically the way it's worked into the film itself that is rather poorly fucking executed, and that really does take away from the movie. I want to talk about the sound mix for a minute. I totally understand that the back of this thing mentions that what they have here is a Betamax tape that they basically just up converted to 1080p. So I am going to give the quality of the video a bit of a pass, but that doesn't excuse the audio. There was literally no fucking attempt to clean up this audio in the slightest. The problem with this is that even though a whole lot of the dialogue is dubbed in, when you have dialogue which is dubbed in versus the stuff that isn't, not only is it obvious because there is no background noise when the fucking dubbed in dialogue is being said, but you can't hear the shit that wasn't dubbed in. So you'll have somebody who's totally fucking clear. You can hear every word they're saying because every word that they're saying was fucking recorded in a studio afterwards. And then the guy next to him kind of sounds like this. There is no difference between character A and character B in terms of how it's all set up. It's just one of them was dubbed in, was mixed poorly with the background noise. The other one is just the natural source audio, and it sounds like shit. There was no fucking attempt to normalize any of this. I totally understand that would have been a challenge if you're working with a fucking Betamax tape, but goddamn it, you could have put at least a little bit of fucking effort in, and they didn't. They put zero effort into that. Similar, honestly, to how they didn't bother to clean up the picture. Guys, again, when you are working with a source like this, and by the way, they didn't mention that because this looks like maybe a second or even a third generation Betamax tape, which means it was a copy of an original tape. So there's no attempt to try to clean up the picture much. I mean, there honestly is not nearly as much noise, like visual, like picture noise, as you would fucking expect, but that honestly might have just been because it was a good second generation Betamax tape. But it still doesn't stop the fact that our visuals are fuzzy and grainy at times, and the fact that almost all of our on-screen text has got mountains and mountains of bleed, which looks terrible. There was no fucking attempt to fix any of that, apparently because the people over at Slasher Video think that just taking a Betamax tape, saying fuck it, and throwing it onto a Blu-ray is good enough. Well, fuck those lazy assholes. Guys, when all's said and done, can I recommend Deadly Prey? No, this movie is shit. And I kind of expected it, because 9 times out of 10, when you're talking about almost unknown obscure 80s action films, they're almost guaranteed to be mountainous piles of shit. But this thing is not only shit, but it's a horrendous knockoff of First Blood and First Blood 2. I love both of those films with a fucking passion, and I understand, guys, that there are a lot of films which were cribbing fucking notes from Rambo and First Blood. The problem, though, is that this thing wasn't cribbing notes. This thing here was lifting the fucking story out of both of them and trying to Frankenstein the fuckers together, and it didn't work. This movie is a lazily made, poorly done pile of shit. Not only that, but the people who put it on Blu-ray are lazy douchebags who don't know the first thing about trying to fucking master shit. So fuck them and fuck the dickheads who made this goddamn movie. This thing is a waste of, how long was this? 88 minutes? 88 fucking minutes. Total waste. Every fucking frame. Absolute waste. Fuck this movie. Now, because it's Fan Appreciation Month, Deadly Prey came off the Amazon wishlist. The person who sent it in was The Warlock. Please, guys, swing on over to the Warlock's, his WordPress page, where he has a whole lot of, where he has a whole lot of movie, he has a lot of movie and TV reviews there. Swing over there, check out everything he's got. Warlock, I thank you. I was somewhat curious about this movie, and if it wasn't such a horrendous knockoff of two of my favorite movies of all time, perhaps maybe I would have given it a little bit more slack. But then again, also considering the lack of the lack of logic, the lack of acting, lack of writing, lack of everything minus fucking pyrotechnics, I probably still wouldn't have given it a whole lot of swing. But oh well. I would not have known that if you hadn't have sent it in, and for that I thank you. You're fucking awesome. Once more, guys, please swing on over to his page. It actually is warlockmoviereviews.wordpress.com. Go over there, check out everything he's got. You know what? I was just talking about First Blood and First Blood 2. I see them both on my Blu-ray shelf. I'm going to go fucking watch those because, goddammit, I am in the mood for something good, and Deadly Prey is anything but. And that, guys, is going to do it for this installment of Reaction and Review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care. I will see you all in the near future. Peace.